Alex Wallace here, and today we're going to talk about a Sermorelin Troche. So this is something that we just started with some of our patients. I have some interesting blood work. I'm going to explain kind of how this works. I'm going to explain what we see here, and we're excited to continue to offer this to our patients. But as always, this is not medical advice. This should not be used to treat or diagnose medical conditions. This is for educational and entertainment purposes only. So, a troche, and it's said a million different ways, and I get it. I'm from Pittsburgh. We regularly butcher the Queen's English. We just make things up. But technically, you say it troche. What it basically is it's like a waxy type thing, if you have no idea what it is, that sometimes you'll let it dissolve under your tongue, or you'll put it in like one of these, like a Zen. You'll put it in between your gum and your cheek, and you just let it dissolve. And in theory, what will happen is this medication will just basically be swallowed up by the blood vessels. There's a ton of blood vessels in your actual mouth, and it will miss first pass of the liver. So oftentimes when you take certain medications, when you take it, just down it, what's going to happen is it's going to go through the portal vein. If you just take it and swallow it, it's going to go through the portal vein. It's going to hit the liver in what's called first pass metabolism. Now, a lot of medications will be destroyed in that first pass metabolism, and then they become basically inert. You're not getting the effect. So the theory behind the troche is that a lot of these medications that would have been destroyed by the liver will just get absorbed in the bloodstream, and then you'll get the benefits without having to do something like a shot. I've even seen certain troches like oxandrolone troches or an anavar troche. I've seen all different types of them. Do they work? I don't know yet. That's something that I'm going to experiment with in the future. But we are going to talk about Sermorelin Troches now. So we had a patient that is a TRT membership for us, and he was like, hey, I'm interested in the Sermorelin because we ran the Sermorelin special. But he's like, dude, I don't want to inject 5 days a week. So injectable Sermorelin works very well. We can see that in blood work, and it has been an efficacious therapy for a lot of our patients. The problem is it does suck to inject 5 days a week. Like, I did Sermorelin for a little bit, and it was tough for me to stay compliant. First off, I don't like injecting. Second off, for me to get ready, prep everything, wipe it off with alcohol, and then inject myself 2 hours after I get done eating before bed was also infeasible. So this guy was in the same boat. He's like, hey, do you have another option? So one of our pharmacies offers Sermorelin Troches, and we decided to give it a shot. So I'm going to pull up just a very, very small portion of his blood work, and what I'm basically going to do is explain a couple of things. Some of it is exciting, some of it is underwhelming. So the first thing we're going to look at is his hemoglobin A1C. So a big fear when you're taking something that increases HGH and IGF-1 is the idea that you will become insulin resistant, because that has to do with more or less how your body shifts, how it's metabolizing energy. It can shift in certain ways that free-form fatty acids are more available for energy, but sometimes glucose will stay high in your blood. So the fear is when you're taking things like human growth hormone or IGF-1 that you could potentially become insulin resistant. Now, when you're taking Sermorelin, you're basically forcing your body to produce more of its own GH and then downstream IGF-1. I did a super long video on this. It's one of our more popular ones on the channel. So I'm going to put a link at the end of this video. So we always check hemoglobin A1C to make sure that we're not going to deal with any type of issues like insulin resistance. So if you look at the metabolic profile that we did, before he started Sermorelin, his hemoglobin A1C was borderline. It was 5.9 with an estimated average glucose of 121. Since starting Sermorelin, surprisingly, it actually went down. So it went from 5.9 to 5.6, which is honestly, that's great news. Now, how can we explain that? Because in theory, his insulin, he should be more insulin resistant, not less. But what we find is when somebody starts a medication like Sermorelin, they typically will get a little bit leaner, especially if they're eating towards their goals. They might put on a little more lean tissue. So maybe they're offsetting that potential insulin resistance by just getting healthier, by losing body fat and aggregating more lean tissue. So it could be like an offsetting effect, but I can't say for sure. Again, because a lot of the studies on Sermorelin are injectable Sermorelin, and many of those studies are also done on children. So this is a dude that's like 50 years old doing a Sermorelin Troche. We're kind of like spearheading this right now. The estradiol went down. Now, I don't believe this is a result of Sermorelin. I believe this is a result of where he was on his injection cycle of TRT. Because if you do a blood test like 2 days after you do a shot of TRT, that's going to look different than if it's 4 days after. So I'm not really looking at that or tracking that up to anything with Sermorelin. I just included it there because when I did the screenshot, estradiol was right in the middle. This is something that's underwhelming to an extent, but I'm going to put a qualifier there. So his IGF-1 before he started therapy was 108. After starting his Sermorelin Troche, it was 117. Now you look at that and you're like, that's garbage. It only went up by 9 points. And in isolation, that is garbage, and it only went up by 9 points. But there's a couple of things that I'm going to add into this. The first one is he says since he started Sermorelin, he's sleeping way better. He has better recovery in the gym, and believe it or not, he said his joints feel better. So these are things that the joints, I mean, that might be more of a long-term effect, but the other things are indicators that his IGF-1 and GH are going up. And when I asked him when he took this blood work, he took it on Monday. And the protocol that we typically do with Sermorelin is a 5-day on, 2-day off protocol. So if he's doing it Monday through Friday, and then he doesn't actually take the test until Monday again, we should expect some decrease in his IGF-1. So I think what we're going to do with this guy is the next time that we get his Sermorelin membership blood work, I'm going to tell him to get it on a Friday. I want to see how high his IGF-1 gets when he has 5 days of consistent use of the Sermorelin Troche. So this is just very preliminary blood work. We have more and more guys starting on the Sermorelin Troche. As I get more information, I'll obviously make it available to you. But if this is something that you're interested in, if you're interested in our Sermorelin membership, go on my website, Steele Health and Hormone Center, center spelled RE.com. Fill out a contact form. We will be in touch within 24 hours. If you learned anything in this video, do me a favor, like the video. If you're interested in content like this, don't forget to subscribe. Again, I'm Alex Wallace. I'm the owner of Steele Health and Hormone Center, and I'll see you in the next video.